Okay, so all those like self-help things you hear all the time about like waking up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
We're not talking about that today. We're going deep on the habits of self-made millionaires.
That's right.
And these are not the ones you normally see on those posters.
No, these are the weird ones.
These are the weird ones, yeah. And we found some really interesting stuff in our sources.
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting about this is it really goes beyond just working harder. It's not about that.
Right?
It's about approaching things differently, and sometimes in a way that at first glance might even seem a little counterintuitive.
Yeah, counterintuitive, even a little bit weird.
Yeah,
But the research shows that these are incredibly powerful. So for this deep dive, we really focused on 3 specific weird habits:
that's right.
strategic solitude,
Mm-hmm.
selective ignorance,
Yes.
and then what we've been calling the failure party mindset.
I love that.
I know, right? I think it kind of captures it. So really think of this as a shortcut to understanding what makes these people tick,
Absolutely.
and maybe even trying a few of these out yourself. All right, so first up, strategic solitude. Now, when you think of somebody who's really made it big, what do you picture?
I picture someone who's, constantly networking, always on the go, maybe has like 3 phones.
Yeah, always connected, right.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole story.
No, it's not, because what we see in the research is that actually these individuals, they place a huge emphasis on alone time. And I'm not talking about just like relaxing or watching TV.
Right.
This is strategic solitude. It's about intentionally carving out time for deep, focused thinking, completely free from distractions.
And that's not meditation. That's not journaling.
No,
It's about literally just thinking.
thinking deeply.
Thinking deeply about a problem, a strategy, an idea.
Exactly. Because when you think about it, if you're constantly bombarded with emails, notifications, other people's demands, it's really hard to get into that deep, focused thinking that you need to solve this big, complex problems.
Right. And we're not really wired for that kind of constant stimulation anyway.
No, our brains actually work better when we give them a break from all that input and allow them to process information deeply. There's a ton of research in cognitive psychology about the benefits of deep work. It actually strengthens the neural connections in your brain and lets you understand those complicated problems on a whole other level.
And we see this in action with people like Elon Musk.
Yes.
He's famous for scheduling what he calls thinking time at SpaceX.
Oh, interesting.
No meetings, no emails, no interruptions, just him and his thoughts.
I mean, it makes sense when you think about the kind of groundbreaking work that he's doing.
Right.
He needs that space to really think outside the box.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, how often do we actually give ourselves that kind of uninterrupted time to think?
Right, we're so used to being constantly busy, but are we really being productive, or are we just filling our time with busy work?
Yeah, and our sources suggest that we should be aiming for at least 90 minutes each week dedicated to this strategic solitude.
90 minutes.
90 minutes. Block it off in your calendar.
Treat it like an important meeting.
Yeah,
And when that time comes, disconnect completely. Phone off, computer notifications silenced, everything. You really have to eliminate those distractions.
because otherwise it defeats the purpose.
Exactly.
And while you're in your strategic solitude, think about this question. What's the one thing I'm avoiding that could 10x my life?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it really forces you to confront those things that you're maybe putting off because you're scared or just too busy.
Right. And strategic solitude gives you the space to really delve into those things. All right, now let's move on to selective ignorance.
Oh, okay.
Now, this one feels kind of wrong, doesn't it?
It does, because we're always told knowledge is power.
Right. Like the more you know, the better decisions you can make.
Yeah, but selective ignorance is saying that's not always true.
Yeah,
It's recognizing that in today's world, we're just bombarded with information.
we are.
And not all of it is helpful.
So much of it's just noise.
Exactly. And in fact, too much information can actually be harmful. It can lead to bad decisions, anxiety, analysis paralysis.
You get overwhelmed, you get stuck.
Exactly. You spend all your time researching and consuming and never actually doing anything.
And a lot of this comes from social media.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
think about it. The average person spends 4 hours a day on social media.
4 hours.
4 hours!
Mm.
That's a lot of time that could be spent on something else.
And a lot of what we're seeing on there is just not real.
No, it's curated, it's filtered, it's designed to make us feel inadequate.
Right. And it's not just social media.
No.
It's the news, It's email. It's all the constant updates and notifications.
Right, and it's all competing for our attention.
And we only have so much attention to give.
That's right.
So we have to be really careful about where we're directing it.
You have to be selective.
We have to be selective.
Yeah.
And the successful people that we studied, they get this.
They do.
They're very intentional about what information they allow into their lives.
They understand that their attention is a valuable resource.
It is.
And they protect it fiercely.
Like Warren Buffett.
Uh-huh.
He lives in Omaha, Nebraska.
Far, far away from Wall Street.
Right.
On purpose.
On purpose, and that's selective ignorance in action.
It is.
He's removing himself from all that noise and distraction so he can think clearly.
And make those long-term decisions.
And Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, when she first started out, she didn't even really understand how venture capital worked.
That's interesting.
But in a way, that lack of knowledge helped her.
Yeah, because she wasn't limited by what she thought she knew.
Right.
She was able to come up with new and innovative solutions.
So what can we do to practice selective ignorance?
Well, our sources suggest starting with an information audit.
Okay.
Take a week and pay attention to where you're spending your time and energy.
Where are you getting your information?
Yeah. And how's it making you feel?
If a social media account makes you feel bad, unfollow it.
Mute it.
Block it.
Whatever you need to do to protect your mental space.
Same thing with news outlets.
Yeah, if it's not relevant to your goals, if it's just stressing you out, tune it out.
Because it's not worth it.
It's not.
All right, last but not least, the failure party mindset.
Yes, this is my favorite.
I know, this one is so interesting.
Because it's so counterintuitive.
We're taught to avoid failure.
At all costs.
Hide it, be ashamed of it.
Yeah.
But the people we studied, they embrace it.
They celebrate it.
Yeah, like literally celebrate it.
I read about a founder who would pop champagne every time they lost a big client.
Really?
Yeah, because they saw it as an opportunity to learn and grow. They knew that if they weren't failing, they weren't taking enough risks.
Right. Because failure means you're trying new things.
Exactly. You're pushing boundaries, you're experimenting.
And that's how you make breakthroughs.
That's how you innovate.
Like James Dyson.
Yes.
He made 5,126 failed prototypes before he finally got his vacuum cleaner right.
5,000.
Can you imagine?
That is incredible.
It's amazing. It's inspiring.
Talk about persistence.
He didn't give up.
No.
He saw each failure as a step closer to success.
A learning opportunity.
And that's the key. Reframing failure as feedback.
It's not a sign of weakness, it's a sign that you're trying.
So how do we adopt this failure party mindset?
Well, first of all, when you experience a setback, don't beat yourself up about it.
Right.
Instead, write down 3 things you learned from that experience.
3 things.
Yeah, it could be anything.
What did you do wrong?
What could you have done differently?
What will you do differently next time?
Exactly. And this helps you shift your focus from the negative emotions to the positive lessons.
And here's another thing you can try.
Okay.
Reward yourself after a failure.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like give yourself a little treat, something you enjoy.
So you're training your brain to associate failure with something positive.
Exactly, because it's not the end of the world.
It's just part of the process.
So to recap, we've talked about 3 weird but powerful habits of self-made millionaires.
Strategic solitude.
Selective ignorance.
And failure parties.
And while they may seem a little unconventional,
They get results.
they do.
They're all about taking control of your focus, your attention, and your mindset.
So which one of these habits speaks to you the most?
Which one are you going to try?
Because maybe, just maybe, embracing a little weirdness is exactly what you need to achieve your biggest goals.
It might just be the key to your next breakthrough.
So think about it
Give it a try.
and see what happens.
You might be surprised.
You might be very surprised.
We'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Bye.
Bye.